Artists. We're often misunderstood because we express ourselves in so many various different ways. What, might you ask, makes me think that as a 65-year-old woman, I could be a filmmaker? I've asked myself the same question. And the answer is always the same. Because I can. Because I am. Why? Because I'm an artist. What kind of an artist? I don't paint pictures. I don't draw very well. I'm not the greatest writer. But I'm an artist. I've always been an artist. All my life. For 40 years of my life, I was a hairdresser. 40 years. Listening to people's stories, making people look beautiful, making people feel good about themselves, making the best of what they have. It's like taking a house that needs a little sprucing up and someone else can't quite see what needs to be done. And you just go in there and you just know. And you do it. And people are happy about that. After many years of being a hairdresser, I stepped away from it because I felt a calling to do something else. Tell stories. My head was swimming with stories. My own life has been a story. But do I want to tell my story, or was it safer to tell other people's stories? It was safer to tell other people's stories. So I disappeared when my kids were old enough to be on their own. And I started to write. I wasn't great at writing, but I was able to capture stories that I heard over the years and put them in a book. I've written several books. I spent the better part of those 40 years as a hairdresser with a cute little boutique hair salon in my home. Why? Because I was a single mom of 4 children during those years. And I wanted to be at home with them, and it just seemed the best way to raise my children the way I wanted them to be raised. So I had to be home. I had to be near them. Once I put this book into publication, all those years of stories, I decided that they would make for a great television series. Lots of little short scenarios and people's lives, a window into different lifestyles and stories. And so I was lucky enough to be able to put my book in front of one of Hollywood's iconic agents, Ron Bernstein. Ron Bernstein, if you don't already know, he's the agent that takes books to film. When Harry Met Sally, Sex and the City, those are all his. And I couldn't believe he was going to spend the time with me to take a look at mine. And he read it. We went to dinner, we had a great time. I adored him. But he said I was invisible in the book, and that I needed to go back and write another 50 or 100 pages and tell my story. Well, I couldn't tell my story, at least not the one that kept coming to mind, because I was threatened to be killed if I told my story. If you've seen the movie Filthy Rich Asians, that was my story. Well, I didn't get to write it. Someone else beat me to it. But that was my story, and that was the beginning of my motherhood. It was a story that can't be told, but it set the tone for me becoming a very independent woman. And I became a mom. He left me with his child, and that was the beginning of a new life for me, as it is for every mother. Life changes when you become a mom. And mine changed. But I couldn't tell Ron that story, not all of it. So I wrote about other stories, and we never got in touch again after that. Cameras, scenes, settings, food, people, food and wine, conversations. They were all swimming in my head. I grew up in a home that wined and dined from the time I was very young. I knew how to cook. I knew how to entertain. My whole family does. My 3 sisters are. We're all great in the kitchen. We could throw down a party you would never imagine. And so I started a food blog. And it was a lot of fun. I cooked for the camera every day for 3 years on video. I wasn't interested in still shots. I wanted to tell a story with my food, and for me, the video was the way to do it. So I learned to be a one-woman producer. I learned how to do my own editing, and I became a storyteller. It all centered around the kitchen and food. I brought people into it. I brought the textures, the music, and all those things that I saw in my head that I wanted to present to you. So I've created stories. I've written dozens of stories about everyday people. And I learned how to capture the visuals, because that's what I started doing as an artist when I was very young. I needed to make these words come alive on screen, in color, with sound and music. Is there a story in there for you? Is there a story in there about you? Probably. You're going to have to check it out for yourself and see if there's something in there that hits home for you, that tells your story. But my dad was a piano player, and I used to hear him play music in the house on this piano. And words to songs were stories about life, about love, romance, loss, happiness, sadness, and they become part of the story we tell with film. It's not just about pictures. It's about sitting down and hearing what someone has to say and how they want to portray that story in whatever setting it is. There's a story to be told around every corner and in every face. We all have a story to tell, and I want to tell them with my camera. Come join me on this adventure late in my life as a visual storyteller, and see if I can't wow you just a little, or make you cry just a little, and certainly make you laugh a whole lot. Come join me. Let's have some fun. Let's tell your story.